So what about another warning sign? I know you've got, now from what I understand, you've got the client, you've got the negotiating company, and then you've got the creditor, but there's another entity involved that sometimes helps provide legitimacy, which is the organization that's used as a trust account, right? Because obviously you said money goes into a trust account.
Right. That's another place where red flags are. You must make sure that your account is always in a trust account with FDIC insured.
Okay, so FDIC,
right.
You want to make sure.
Right, and the fact it's in a trust account, a lot of people don't understand what a trust account means. Mm-hmm. A trust account is where us as a debt management company cannot take your money out. Okay. Your money is completely secure in that position.
Right.
Make sure you read make sure you read your contract very closely, your agreement, the original agreement. Mm-hmm. Everything in that agreement's got to spell out how all fees are taken. Make sure you read that closely.
Right. And if you're not familiar with the language, there's some great services like Prepaid Legal that can help you read through that.
Right.
But
and have a lawyer or an accountant take a look at it. An accountant, for instance, there is an issue with whether you're debt management anytime or in bankruptcy. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Where if debt is forgiven, and that forgiven debt is reported to the IRS.
So
that debt is forgiven, mm-hmm. And is reported to the IRS from the original company that the money is owed to, then that can be considered income.
Okay.
So it's important, but many companies do not report it, so it's not always there. Matter of fact, probably most companies don't.
Okay.
But you should know that that's a possibility. And a lot of debt management companies are just not going to tell you that.
Sure.
So we try to be, our idea for our company is to be transparent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is real time, guys. See, we don't try to act, and this is the real thing. It's the best way to do this so that you know everything is legit. So the trust company, is it best to have a trust company that's owned by a third party? Because I know some of these organizations can have their own trust company that they set up themselves.
You want to have that company. You want, first of all, it has to be FDIC insured,
okay.
So which takes away from owning your own company.
Now, is there a way to verify it's FDIC insured? Because I know someone could say, well, yeah, we're insured.
Sure. Just find out from the company who they're using as a trust company and give them a call.
Okay. So that's real important to know. And some of these trust companies that are used, I know we were on the phone recently with one that actually provide you the individual their own access, own username, passcode, so they can see the account, what's building up, and all that.
Right, and the company should, the debt management company you're using should send you out statements, should have an idea when you call them up what is in that bank account, should be able to send you out a statement showing you what's in your account.
Right.
And not only what's in the account, but what fees they've taken, the breakdown of how money's come in and what money's come out.
Right. Now, this is interesting too. I want to bring this up because this always comes into question. I've talked to people about it. I've shared my own story, and they always have this look in their eye that's like, well, okay, maybe I'm interested, but how do I really know this is legitimate, that this is real? I mean, I know you've done it and other people have told it, and that obviously helps you in making the decision to move forward with a company like Liberty Financial Management. But what are some other things that really can solidify in the viewer's heart and in a person's heart that this is a legitimate tool that is used? I mean, are there financial laws or codes that they can look up themselves? I mean, some of this stuff is obviously secret, what we're putting out on the internet. I'm sure they're not going to be happy about that is available, but it's important for the person to know.
Well, to be honest with you, Roger, it's not that easy. It's not that easy for the average person to figure out what it is. You just have to look at you basically, like any other company, if you walk into any company, you buy something from the internet from the company, you ask yourself, is this legitimate? Mm-hmm. So you have to do your research to find out if it's legitimate.
But what about the laws about this, what we're talking about, debt cancellation? I mean,
well, there's I think if anybody would check out or talk to any company or call themselves, it's obvious the company itself has the right to lower your debt. It's
just like negotiating.
Right, it's just like you, Roger.
Product,
if I owed you $10,000 and I said, Roger, I have $5,000 to pay you $10,000, and you say, okay, I accept that.
So it's a business transaction.
So that anybody by asking an attorney can understand that is just a negotiation. It's a one-to-one negotiation. Once somebody accepts it and it is in writing, it's accepted. Yeah. So that's stated by hundreds of years of law.
And that's what's key is I have a friend of mine that said, always barter. Always barter. You know, you go to China. I've been to China quite a bit, and you walk down there, and they barter with you for the products and services. I make you friend deal. I make you friend price. You're like, well, if I was your friend, I wouldn't want that price. I don't want to be your friend, right? But they're always willing to negotiate, and that's the same thing here. What you're basically saying is, like when you go buy a car, you're going to buy a car or a boat, you know, $2 million boat or $5 million boat, whatever you want to say, and you negotiate with them. Say, well, I like that, but I don't want it for that.
Remember what it makes a contract.
Yeah.
Two people in agreement makes a contract, right?
Exactly. So your debt is like the product, and you're saying, look, I want but this is what I want to pay to get out of this agreement.
Right.
And if they're willing to do it, this is a legal transaction.
Right. This is not something that the debt management is forcing on the debtor, the client company.
Right.
This is something that they're in agreement with, so it's completely legitimate.
And you know what's interesting too from a business standpoint is a lot of these companies have made millions and billions of dollars of profit in excess of the original loan. And they've already calculated into their calculations that a percentage of their accounts are going to default. Now, you don't want to take advantage of it either. I mean, I'm somebody that if I can honor my obligations, I'm going to do that. But there are times when your customer base disappears and your accounts dry up, and you're literally in a position where you don't even have the ability to give them the resources. So that's a different story.
I think it's very important to state to our audience that if they can, they should always try to pay back their debts. That is their obligation, to pay those debts back.
Yeah, you made the agreement originally.
Unfortunately, there are many times in life where it's just very difficult to do that, and it becomes such a burden that there seems to be no way out of that situation without debt negotiation, or in the final thing, going into bankruptcy.
Right.
That's why we have bankruptcy laws.
Exactly. Now, I want to say the importance of integrity to re-emphasize why it's important to honor your obligations. One is you feel better, you sleep better at night. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I want to talk about the importance of integrity. Is that initially when I first had to go through this process, they wrote me off. I came into an inheritance, and at that point, I literally paid them back, which freaked them out because they had already written it off. Now all of a sudden they have this money. They don't know what to do with it.
I was going to say, a lot of times they don't even want it after.
Yeah, they don't want it, but they took it. So now I got to go back to my taxes and say, look, I paid off the full amount, and it made me feel good that I honored my obligation. And I think that's important, is that on the inside you want to be whole and complete.
Right.
So later, when your life gets back to being whole and complete and the revenues are strong, that's something that you can do to feel better about yourself.
Right.
But again, this is all legal and it's legitimate.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, today a lot of debts have come because of illness. People have to put things on credit cards because they're paying off medical bills or taking on drugs prescriptions that are very expensive, so they're buying them on credit.
Right.
And
some of this is all greed.
Yeah,
and it's all driven by greed, which causes the problem.
Right, as we all know in this financial position, there's a lot of greed by all of us. We all have to take the blame for what's happened here.
Yeah. And that's where that's why it's important to look at your companies and find out how legitimate and honest they are, because there are those taking advantage of the situation right now. And
absolutely.
But by taking an honest,
and one of the reasons, Roger, that I wanted to get in this business, I wanted to be different.
Right.
I ran, when I was on the collection side of it, and the reason my company grew so large, we were the third largest collection agency in New England, was because even from a collection point of view, that I understood that there were a lot of greedy people in that business, and we're taking advantage of their clients, and we were prided ourselves in being honest and dealing with from dealing with the debtors, dealing with the debtors from an honest basis, not using strong arm taxes, make sure we follow the law to the letter of the law. And so even from that perspective, I always understood that it made sense to use honey instead of strong arm.
Now, just out of curiosity, and this is kind of a side note, but what was the turning point for you? Why did you decide to come over to the client side as opposed to the...
Well, I'm telling you very simple. Like most people, I like to be liked.
Yeah.
And when you're calling up somebody, no matter how nice you can be to them, but you're still trying to collect money, not too many people like you.
It's a tough
and even your clients don't really like you very much because you're still not bringing them 100%.
Right.
So neither side makes you happy.
Right.
And from my perspective, I felt like I wanted to help people, and I wanted to make sure that I felt good about what I was doing. So it was kind of what you were just talking about. It was extremely important for me to feel good about myself, and that's why I wanted to do this. And I know how important this can be to people, and I know how much when I help somebody here, and they tell me, Ed, I trust you. and then I help them through. That gives me a great feeling.
And they come back and
Right.
say, thank you, you saved
Right.
my life.
And then being on both sides of that experience,
Yeah.
I can relate to them, I can empathize with them from both sides.
Right, right. Yeah, that's so key.
So I can explain to them how it feels to be on the debtor side and how it feels to be on the person who is looking for their money.
Right. Now, what's the first step somebody needs to take when they're